Our scripture lesson is from the Old Testament, 1 John chapter 3, verse 18 to 24. You may follow along in your pew Bible on page 240. Little children, let us love not in word or speech, but in truth and action. And by this we will know that we are from the truth and will reassure our hearts before him. Whenever our hearts condemn us, for God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have boldness before God, and we receive from him whatever we ask, because we obey his commandments and do what pleases him. And this is his commandment, that we should believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another just as he has commanded us. All who obey his commandments abide in him, and he abides in us by the Spirit that he has given us.
I'd like to tell some stories about the middle school mission trip last March. Once we arrived in San Francisco and checked in with the YWAM, which stands for Youth with a Mission, we went to the March for Our Lives, the March Against Gun Violence. We brought our signs that we had made the night before. A few people asked to take our picture holding our signs because we were a youth group, kids who cared enough to go to the march. It wasn't that fun holding my sign above my head so long that my arms were sore, trying to listen to the speeches from a quarter-mile away and then marching in a crowd of people. It wasn't really fun, but it was meaningful, and I'm so glad we got to go. Later, we served hot chocolate to the homeless community around the Tenderloin area and the YWAM. The idea was to give people a warm beverage for the night, but also to talk to them and pray for them. Even though some people we visited might have been mentally ill or on drugs, most of them were really nice. One lady told us her story about how she could not go to college and could not get a good job. She said we should not make the mistake she did and drop out of school. Another man told us about how he was in a war and got badly injured and still wasn't healed yet. Some of the stories didn't sound very true, but they were all very clever. We took turns praying out loud for people. Then we met David, who was shivering and twitching even though he was wrapped in a warm blanket. We poured him some hot chocolate, but he could not sit up to drink it. He said he had the disease MS for 7 years and was waiting for someone to come by with a cell phone so that he could call an ambulance. Garrett had a phone, so he called 911 for David. We prayed that David could get some actual care for his disease. Back at the YWAM, we shared our stories and prayed. I realized that they had us pray a lot. The next morning, at our breakfast prayer, nobody wanted to pray out loud, and the person who worked there was frustrated that we weren't volunteering. I do not normally pray out loud, and I think their group just learned differently. Another difference I noticed was that in a normal context, they used the word Jesus where I would usually use the word God. For example, when I would say, "Dear God," they would say, "Dear Jesus." After breakfast, we went over to the Glide Memorial Church for the Sunday service, which was also Palm Sunday. The service was really fun. There was a worship band with a bunch of different instruments like a saxophone, trombone, trumpet, electric guitars, and drums. There was a huge choir with all ages, not wearing uniforms or robes, but just whatever they wanted. Everybody participated in singing and clapping to the upbeat songs. Most of the service was music and one short sermon in the middle by a woman who just stood in the front instead of in a pulpit. For greeting time, we hugged instead of shaking hands. It was much different than the YWAM. And I am thankful for all those who made this trip possible. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rowan Haight. Many of you have probably seen me around the church doing the things that I do at the church. Specifically, just this year, I joined youth group. And so now I get to be a part of that whole community. And as part of this, we have our annual mission trip. This year it was to San Francisco. specifically a district in this city called the Tenderloin. When we first got there, we went around learning about that part of San Francisco that we were in. We stayed at YWAM, or Youth with a Mission. It's an organization that has many places around the world meant for youth on the exact same type of trip that we were. Anyway, it was not the part of San Francisco that I had pictured. You couldn't see the bay, there was homeless people on every corner, and the streets were covered with trash and things. It was just not the type of place that I was expecting when I was told that we were going to San Francisco. But I realized that this place needed help, and that was what we were here to do. Not big help, but to improve the situation and the lives for the homeless people. First day in San Francisco, we went around to clean the stores of local shopkeepers, which were mainly Pepsi corner stores, the exact same size. But my group, for our last one, went to the laundromat. Now, what better place to meet different people doing the same thing in their lives than a laundromat? And we did meet many people. In fact, one lady spent around 2 minutes telling us how much she appreciated what we were doing. And I thought that was really sweet. And I think Camilla did too. There she is. And a picture of us cleaning the laundromat is on the bulletin in the top left corner, if you want to look at that one. That night, we went around the city giving hot chocolate to the homeless. I was with one of the people from YWAM, the one who got frustrated, and Nathan. Sometimes they took the hot chocolate and turned away, or in the case of one man, he pretty much told us his life story. During this, it was pretty obvious he was on drugs, so we weren't exactly sure what was true and what was not. But he claimed to have met Kanye West, who is a famous rapper, for those of you who don't know. It was very enlightening to talk with the homeless. It shows you their point of view, and you realize that they're people, just like you. On the next day, which was Palm Sunday, we went to the Glide Memorial Church service. We were all expecting a very normal, regular jury proceeding, but that is not what we got. They had very gospel-like music that just made you want to swing with the beat. It was really cool. What I really liked about the service was that it was different, and it was nice to have a change. It opened me to a different form of worship that personally I could do every day if I could. But maybe the thing that was most meaningful to me was the march that we went to. When we were there, we took part in the March for Our Lives. For those of you who don't know, that was the march and the movement started by the victims of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, who, yes, are teenagers. Anyway, the night before we made our signs, and I thought of this quote I wanted to share with you. When an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, the very act of protest confers dignity upon them. It's a quote by Bayard Rustin, who was an American activist for civil rights. Now, during the rally preceding the march, many different speakers spoke. There was a woman who was a Columbine survivor, Gavin Newsom's wife spoke, a teenage survivor of gun violence. But the one thing that was the same throughout these many different stories was the feeling of change, like it was drifting through the very air. Everybody there wanted the acknowledgement that they were alive and that their lives mattered. And that single-handedly sufficed for the entire mission trip for me. I felt like I had already fulfilled the Lord's calling, God calling me to take a stand and stand up for what I believed in, and not let my voice go unheard, so that in the end, I could say that I made the right choice for myself and that I did the right thing for me. And that was such an amazing opportunity to have been given. After this whole trip, I can take away that, and this comes from a passage in Romans 8, I am sure that neither in death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Riley Chabonneau, and I am one of the high school students who recently flew to Honduras for our 2018 mission trip. As many of you know, Honduras is a third world country ridden with poverty, gangs, and a corrupt government. But despite its many faults, I saw firsthand that the people of Honduras aspire to rebuild their communities and ultimately their country. We served in Honduras for an 8-day period through the organization SHH, Students Helping Honduras. The goal of the organization is to build 1,000 schools across Honduras as a way to provide Honduran children with opportunities likely to keep them off the streets and away from the widespread domination of street gangs. Our individual purpose as a youth group was to begin the construction of a high school in a small community called Villa Soleada. We began working our second day, where we took part in the groundbreaking of the new high school. All of us picked up pickaxes and shovels, knowing very little about what our tasks would consist of. The Honduran masons that were also working on the school began to instruct us, but in Spanish, of course. Very quickly, it became apparent that there was quite a large language barrier between the Hondurans and ourselves, but it was amazing how quickly all of us became accustomed to the barrier. Through lots of sign language and brief conversations, all of us were able to communicate in a mutual way. For 6 days, we dug over 25-foot deep holes while the hot sun beat down on us for hours straight. The work was physically and mentally straining, but all the while I couldn't but help but find the work to be one of the most enjoyable things I'd ever done. Knowing that we were helping not only the kids, but the whole community was extremely fulfilling. Most significantly, the thing that resonated with most of us was how loving and kind the Hondurans were. The workers who we toiled with were some of the funniest people I've ever met, and the bonds that some of us made with them, for example, Travis Tomlinson and Kevin, were a perfect representation that no matter where you come from or what language you speak, we as human beings always find a way to connect with one another. And not only were the workers phenomenal people, but so were all of the children that we interacted with throughout the trip. Our second to last day in Honduras, we took a bus ride to the beach, along with about 20 kids from the orphanage. It astounded me how loving and affectionate each child was. The girls would come and braid our hair, some of them fell asleep on our laps, and others would grab your hand and hold it. They treated us with so much kindness, and by the time we had to leave, I did not want to leave Honduras at all. The country itself was grief-stricken, but the people and culture we encountered was beautiful. When I arrived home from Honduras, I cried multiple times, not only because I wanted to go back, but because I couldn't believe the things I had experienced and seen there. The trip was life-changing for myself and everyone else. A few of us even plan on going back next August to help finish up the Villa Soleada High School and to greet some of our Honduran friends again. Lastly, I want to thank you all for supporting this high school mission trip. Without all of you, it wouldn't have been possible. Not only did your contributions change my life and many others in this room, but you assisted the people of Honduras as well. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ethan Dahlke, and this is my experience in Honduras. Life for the people we worked with is very different than it is for us in the United States. The village of Villa Soleada is at first glance a large, unorganized collection of houses. However, on further inspection, the village is an intricate community full of friendly and lively people. Honduras as a country is the fourth poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, with about 2/3 of the population living below the poverty line and 28% unemployed. The houses in this community are mostly 1 or 2 room houses with brick walls, concrete floors, and metal roofs. The houses lack many of the qualities such as air conditioning, microwaves, and glass windows that we enjoy in the United States. The school itself is situated next to a palm oil plantation on land that was formerly a swamp and is similarly constructed to the houses, having 7 classrooms for kindergarten through 7th grade, and it is walled in for safety. There is a library and a computer center at the school, as well as a basketball court and a cage soccer pitch. The boys and girls home next to the school has housing for orphan kids, as well as a library and kitchen. The Boys and Girls Home is remarkably self-sufficient as they grow their own bananas, pineapples, mangoes, and other fruits thanks to Honduras's tropical climate. They also have chickens and rabbits there. However, many kids in Honduras do not have an opportunity like this, as they do not have access to even basic schooling, and as a result, join gangs. Without the bilingual school and the orphanage in Villa Soleada, the majority of those kids would have been involved in gang-related activities, as Honduras is plagued by gang violence. Despite these hardships, the kids remain upbeat and friendly both at school and at home. Throughout the week, we worked hard doing a variety of different tasks. On Monday of the week, we were a part of the groundbreaking ceremony for a new high school building at the Villa Soleada Bilingual School, and after the ceremony, we set to work digging holes for the foundation. We were joined by some of the older students, and we worked alongside the Honduran hired workers. We used pickaxes and shovels to dig holes 3 feet wide and 5 feet deep. The work, although tedious, was rewarding as we were able to see how much progress we had made and feel good about it. Once the holes were complete, we mixed concrete in order to pour it into the holes. We carried 100-pound bags of cement across the school to the work site, then put it into the mixing pallet. Next, we used wheelbarrows to add rocks and dirt to the cement, then added buckets of water to make it wet. We used shovels to stir it until it was completely mixed. Then we worked as a team, youth, adults, Honduran workers alike, and formed a bucket brigade to pass buckets full of cement from the mixing pallet to the holes and return the empty ones. Each day we were rewarded from a hard day's work with fresh watermelon and pineapple, which were the best I've ever had in my life. Working on the foundation was the main task we undertook that week, although we did some other things, such as painting in the library at the Boys and Girls Home and one of the buildings at the Esteban Moya Vocational High School. The last and most meaningful work we did was tutoring the students at the bilingual school. It was only certain people that got to do it, and I was lucky enough to be one of them. In the 1 hour that we were with the students each day, we got to bond with them and learn about them through the one-on-one tutoring. The students were eager and attentive on their reading and homework and often asked me for help on words they didn't understand when they were reading the English story. I was surprised at their amazing English skills for their age. I was able to use my knowledge of Spanish to help teach a young girl named Juanita a grammatical concept. She struggled with it in English, so I explained it to her by using the Spanish equivalent, and then she was able to get it. The kids were so appreciative of us helping them and loved to joke around with us after the tutoring was done. Being able to connect with them truly made the work worthwhile. There are many moments from the trip that stood out to me, so it is difficult to choose just one to share. But the one that stands out the most to me was actually on the first day of the trip. It was just before lunchtime, and we had just finished touring the school and the surrounding area, and were standing inside the school's library, cooling down from the heat with the help of fans and water. While we were standing there, Shin Fujiyama, the leader of SHH, began to tell us about the state of education in Honduras. He told almost half of us to sit down on the floor, and as we did, he explained that we were the 40% of children in Honduras who cannot attend school. He explained that the reasons why they cannot attend school is due to it being inaccessible, unaffordable, as the government only provides free education through 5th grade, or the necessity to work to provide for their family. Shin went on to say that many kids walk to school 2 hours each way daily just to attend school. He then told all but 3 people to sit down and explained that the remaining 3 represented the 6% of the people that could afford to attend a private school. He then told all but 1 person to sit down and said that the remaining 1 person represents the 2% of kids that attend a private school that teaches English. Shin then told us about how being able to speak English in Honduras greatly increases your income and job opportunities. This stands out to me because it opened my eyes to the importance of the school in Villa Soleada and how it provides free English education to kids who otherwise would not receive it. Education is something that I think is taken for granted here in the U.S., as many of my friends often mention about how they hate school and the IB program and don't want to go. But hearing this story and seeing how happy and excited the kids were to be at school and to learn is something I will never forget. And so every time school gets difficult and I feel like not being there, I think about those kids in Honduras and how privileged I am to be receiving an IB education that the kids there could only dream of. Those kids I met in Honduras motivate me to pursue my education with the goal that someday it will help me make the world a better place. There were many times during the trip where I saw examples of God and of love. The one that stands out most to me is the community that was formed. We worked together as people of different backgrounds, cultures, languages, ages, and ways of living, and we formed a community. We were many, but we became one. One of the ways God brought us together as a community was through cage soccer. We played together with the Hondurans, united through our common love for soccer. As we played, the language barrier became insignificant as soccer was our language that night. I saw God in how we worked in harmony together for a week, and through sweat and hard work, did the work of God by helping those in need. 1 John 3:18 tells us to let us not love with our words or speech, but with actions and in truth. This verse is a perfect description of the trip. We showed love to this small community through our hands and feet, through the effort we put in to help build this school. We showed love by leaving an impact, creating something that will teach children for generations after us, and by helping and playing with the kids, ensuring they will always remember us and we will always remember them. The school itself is an example of God's work, and being a part of this incredible mission was an amazing opportunity. I also saw God through the kids and what they did for us. On our last day working there, we received dozens of thank you cards made by the kids to show their gratitude for what we did for their school. They were so thankful that we were allowing them to further their education with the new high school. The cards, some addressed to us individually by name, had colorful pictures and heartwarming messages of thanks. The kids showed love and admiration for us as they couldn't wait to hang out with us each day. God created a relationship that inspired the kids and us to be the best that we could be. They were in need of love, as some of the kids have hard lives at home, and their openness and willingness to accept the love and individual attention we gave them was amazing. I also believe that we were also in need of love, and that God gave it to us through these kids and their endless joy and happiness that they showed and passed on to us. Before the trip started, Garrett had us set goals for ourselves for the trip and how we planned on achieving them. The 3 goals I set for myself were to be able and willing to work as much as I can, learn about and be able to appreciate the people and the culture, and to grow closer to God. How I planned to achieve that was by not complaining and doing the tasks I was assigned, being open when trying new things, talking to people in Spanish and asking them questions, and praying and reflecting daily while being watchful for what God wants of me. I believe that God helped me achieve all my goals and helped me grow as a person. I stepped out of my comfort zone. I did new things. I talked to people that I never would have thought I would talk to. I realized on this trip that what God wanted of me was to see the dedication and passion of the kids at the school, of Shin and his organization, and all the people that we met working to make their lives better and their community better. And once I saw this, God wanted me to apply that same dedication and passion to my own life and to do what I can to make things better. Hearing about impoverished people on the news is different from seeing it firsthand. God opened my eyes through this experience, allowing me to see life from a whole new perspective. I empathized with these people and their struggles, and as a result, I've become more open-minded. Now I challenge each and every one of you to take a look at your own life and your own community and do something every day to make the world a better place. It doesn't have to be big, as sometimes it is the smallest things that have the biggest impacts. The most important thing is that it makes a difference and makes someone or something better. Making a difference today leads to a better world tomorrow. Thank you.
Say you to me, you're a bird with an eye for anything shiny, searching the land for a hero of a man. You say I need inside me, so strong, so long. You'll see. Hold on to what you've been given lately. Hold on to what you know you've got. Hold on to what you've been given lately. Hold on, 'cause the world will turn if you're ready or not. Simplicity, a heart of golden, old head, young shoulders, quiet and lovely, becoming part of me. And now I see, from a handful of names and 1,000 faces, one light burning fiercely. I was tired of January, I was tired of June. I felt a change a coming.
Searching for a friendly face, somewhere I could call my own. Hours turning into days, years begin to drift away. Better hurry up and go. It's now or never. We'll go wherever. It's now or never. My secret pleasure. It's now or never. This way forever. It's now or never. One love to treasure. Searching for a friendly face, somewhere I could call my own. Hours turning into days, years begin to drift away. Better hurry up and go. It's now or never. We'll go wherever. It's now or never. My secret pleasure. It's now or never. This way forever. It's now or never.
L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore can love. Is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore can love. Is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you.
People tell me to be cautious. People tell me not to lose my self-control. People tell me to be flawless. People tell me not to let myself evolve.